the sounds that we were using was from the 70s. The 70s had the most soulful, I would say, artists of ever. I mean, and these were the cats who grew up in the 50s with the jazz, and they studied and heard a lot of jazz. And these jazz chords and jazz harmonies and jazz fills were, for the first time, being used by these artists like Marvin Gaye, who came up in a doo-wop era, and then Stevie Wonder, who, you know, came up in those jazz eras with Miles and all these cats. And, you know, you had Donny Hathaway adding the gospel. But the 70s really started to take the jazz and incorporate it in with some of the sounds and eclectic sounds, and the soul was brought out, the 70s soul. And so us, Generation X, I would say, like in the 90s, we coming out of right out of the hip hop era, you know, sampling and starting to regurgitate a lot of those sounds from the 70s, which was the jazz, you know, had the root of the jazz chords and things of that nature in there. So I would say jazz plays a big major part in getting that soul into the R&B, and hence the neo soul that ended up coming from it too. So we were experimenting in the studio big time. And with what I was going through in life, man, death was hitting home. A lot of close relatives in my life were passing away right at this time. And you're dealing with things that you're becoming a man and starting to understand that life is bigger than the studio. And you're leaving the studio, of course, and going out in real life every day, every night, and seeing what's really happening. And you're coming in and you have this fantasy of your dreams and what you're trying to do. And of course, you know, it just, I was writing about all that stuff. Art imitates life, life imitates art, whichever way you want to say, but it's real, whichever way. You can't deny that it's not really happening. You know, the songs are a way to kind of get it out, but, you know, you still have to go back to it. The songs could be a drug for a minute, just like any drug. But the reality is you do have to go home. You do have to go back to the, you know, go to the funeral or whatever the case may be. I was experiencing some of the closest people in my life were, you know, had left this plane of things, and, you know, just dealing with that. And then on top of it, I was going through a divorce. It was a lot of things happening, you know, but the bright times before that, I made sure I wrote about that when things were good. So as I said before, we did have a lot of good, happy, good time songs. And I think this collection has a lot of balance. It's balanced. It has a lot of good and bad, as you saw from the last record. But me and Jeff had discussed that we wanted to capture the Motown. We wanted to capture the Stevie and the 70s. We wanted to capture Gamble and Huff. I love Delphonics and Stylistics, all of, you know, all the groups from the 70s, the Enchantment. And then we loved Earth, Wind, Fire, the Commodores, Ohio Players. So it was so many fields, so many realms, and we couldn't tap into them all. The Isley Brothers, of course, you know. But when I would talk this over and we would go listen to the stuff in the car, Vidal and Dre, and we would, like, you know, talk about a lot of stuff, and then we would try to, you know, add our own flavor in there. And of course, when I was writing, sometimes I could get caught up into the Stevie Wonder, you know, You Are the Sunshine of My Life, and just some of the 70s phrasing. I still liked a lot of the 70s phrasing, some of the old school, you know, courting phrasing. We were, you know, even though a lot of the groups at the time were writing, getting down and dirty with the writing and getting explicit, I still was keeping it a little general, but, you know, I got a little explicit. If you listen to some of the songs, I went in, I went in, talking about, putting ice here and chocolate syrup over there and all that. I gave the women some of the things that they was yearning for. So it has a healthy mix, a healthy nutritional nourishment for you all the way through and through. I think we tapped into a lot of different realms. So, the instrumentation just got a little bit more thick. We started always using some type of live instrumentation. It got away from just anything being totally keyboard to, us using really just live instrumentation. Even if we started with a keyboard track or something, we were going to come in and bring live bass. We were going to come in and we was going to bring even bells or, the real vibraphones. So you'll hear that in some more of these songs, man. It gets deep. But I definitely was leaving right out of a situation in the streets and then coming in the studio and saying like, yep, we putting that right down of what's going on in my life right now. So whether it was a sexual realm that was going on before that and I came in the studio and flew off, or whether it was something in life of someone, a funeral or dying or whatever was going on, I came and put it right into the music. It was like right hands on. One of the first times, like I guess in my early life, I wasn't really taking too many songs. Now Carvin, me and him coming from the Jersey realms, we was over at Up and Up for a while with Harold Russell doing commercials on Power 99. I had a song #1 on the countdown of Power 99 before I got with Jeff, and Carvin Haggins actually was helping me with the promo and everything over there with Harold. And when we came over to Jeff's, he actually started becoming a cat that I would lean on. He used to rhyme. It was just natural for me to say, hey, man, I need somebody to kind of be able to finish a sentence. If I say something and I want to end it on bright day, he could flip it and be like, oh, yeah, because he rhymed. You know what I'm saying? I think, yeah, he was in a group and he rhymed and things. So he was just trying to, get his feet wet in the industry outside of rapping and getting. So he would come in and say, hey, man, V, I was like, yeah, sure, come in and write. So he, from like second, third song in, Carv, you see him co-writing with me on a lot of records, helped me to piece together a lot of things. And you'll see a lot of these writers and producers are names that you do know, and this was like pretty much their first real professional project. They was probably doing little things here and there, just like I was, but we all came together at A Touch of Jazz at this time. And, these cats sprouted up to be, work with some greats. And, you read the credits, you've seen these names. In the next 5 to 10 years, they will become household names, still getting Grammys to this day. But I want y'all to check out, the next record on the Time Capsule collection. Hope you enjoy it.
Describe it if only the